Welcome back, everybody. Thomas FreeMe, and this is the Thomas FreeMe TV and Podcast Show. You're trying to build a prison.
You can't handle the truth.
I know it's been a minute, and all with good cause. I bring you good news, and we'll get into all of that. But first and foremost, many blessings to all those that are suffering from the mass shootings. Prayers to the families of these people who want answers to their questions as to why is this going on in America? Why does this keep happening? Why does it keep happening in public schools, not private schools? Why is it so clean? You know, it's like my questions are, why is this so clean, right? And what I mean by clean is let's take Buffalo, right? This kid was allowed to put so much hate online. He was allowed to put his manifesto out there and then carry out the act and live stream it. How is this possible, right? How is this possible when I'm so censored? All my channels are censored. You know, I put a video out on TikTok and it gets taken down in a matter of seconds, right? YouTube has demonetized my channel because they told me I'm too controversial. So we've censored the United States of the president, and regardless whether you agree with him or disagree with him, like him or not, it was done, and that's factual. The man couldn't post on social media, okay? But yet these kids are doing this. How is that? You know? And today's discussion is, revolves around this. Some of these answers to these questions as to how and where is this hate breeding at, right? Not too long ago, a couple days ago, I listened to a congressional hearing on, gun safety, the AR-15, and such, and I listened to a good portion of that discussion. And a lot of it, again, are these congressional people that sit up there in Washington in their seats, and they have all the answers. They have all the answers without any experience of being in the mix. These people have no connection to our communities. And to me, it's disturbing to listen to these people up there talking about decisions that they're going to make that's going to affect our lives, and yet they have no connection to the communities. There's no conversation. There's no hearing anybody out. It's just an agenda to push. And when I see this, it just makes me question events that happen even more, which is why I reach out to my people in the public and just try to get people to understand what's going on, how important it is for us to remain divided and fighting amongst each other. So these are the discussions. Race in America. This is what we're hearing, and we always have been racially divided, and I guess it's kind of like, who crossed the road first, or who came first, the chicken or the egg. Are we growing more divided, as I hear these congressional people like to say up in their boxes, that we're becoming more racial, more divided? And I think that we've always been that way, and I think that it's just becoming more outspoken, right? It's gaining bravado. It's getting confidence from somewhere to portray itself. So it's like, where is this coming from? Well, me being incarcerated for the amount of time that I have, and many others, I know where a lot of this hate is bred, and where a lot of this racial division is bolstered, is taught. And that is in our prison industrial system. And then these individuals are learning these ways of hatred, these idiocracies that they're bringing out into our society, right? And that is where these groups are coming from. That is where the hate comes from. But ultimately, the point that I would like to make is that this is a trickle-down effect that is in our administration. When I hear these congressional people up here talking, they talk about us. We're the white supremacists, right? We are the militias and the elites that are out there that they have to deal with. We have to deal with these white supremacist groups and these white militias and these hate groups, and we have to, we're the ones that have to figure it out. They never include themselves. Now we already know this is a majority of a white, cast, and they never include themselves. Not one question from not one person did I hear that asked, what about the white supremacy that is amongst us? What about the racism and the bigotry that is amongst us now as we speak? Who is the one? You won't hear that. It's us, the people, and they have to deal with us. Listen to these people's speech. That is the most important thing. In this conversation that I'm having with Frank Depalma, who was incarcerated for 42 years, right? His story is coming out. I'm doing that editing. This was the first one I wanted to put out of our discussion. It's probably going to be about a 10-part discussion. It's very lengthy, very detailed, very in-depth, because Frank Depalma is a very unique individual. This is a man who spent 42 years incarcerated, and not for a crime that he committed on the street, but for crimes that he committed in prison. He killed somebody in prison. He killed a black man in prison. He stabbed quite a few. And it wasn't out of hatred for black people, but more as an environment that was bred for this to happen and for this to occur. And this is an everyday thing in all our prisons, right? So the man went in with a 10-year sentence at 18 years old as a cocky 18-year-old man who was taught to retaliate from his father, who was taught to retaliate from his father. His father taught him to retaliate at a young age. When somebody offends you, you retaliate. And he taught his son how to retaliate with tools, if necessary. And this is what he did. One fateful day, somebody ran over his best friend, his dog, his companion, and he lost it. The person showed no empathy, didn't even apologize, just kept on going like his best friend was garbage. And maybe to some, they would view it that way. It was just a dog. But to others, I'm sure both can relate on both sides. To others, this was his best friend. This was the only companion in the world that got him, that understood him in that time. And this man just ran over him and kept on going. And he lost it. He went up to the house. He tried to fight the guy. The guy wouldn't come out. He saw the keys in the man's truck. And ultimately, he took the truck and ran into the guy's house, is what the end result was. He had a plea bargain on the condition of, he had probation, a plea bargain for probation on the condition that he apologized to the judge for what he did. And Frank, being the man that he was raised to be, did not, because he did not feel sorry. He felt justified in the fact that this man killed his best friend. And he didn't apologize. And for that, the judge revoked the plea and resentenced him and gave him 10 years in state prison. And that is the result of this man spending 42 years in prison and 22 of those years in solitary confinement. 22 years in solitary confinement. He didn't see his face for 22 years. And I can relate to that because I spent 6 months in solitary. And yeah, we'd have to shave like this and just shave and then just feel. And unbeknownst to me, I have no idea why it's so important to see our reflection. We would find anything that we could to see our reflection in something, just to see, I just want to see myself. And it was very important to me. And this man went 22 years without seeing himself. So imagine that. Imagine not seeing your face for 22 years and then seeing it for the first time 22 years later. These are traumatic effects. And we delve into these things in later episodes. However, There is two of those episodes are solely on solitary confinement, the effects that it had on him. And if you pay attention throughout these discussions, you can see the effect that it has had on this human being. So, but specifically today is about racism in America, right? And all the things that we see going on, all the hypocrisies, all about, Colin Kaepernick kneeling, for instance. This has always been a topic of mine. Is the hatred towards Colin Kaepernick because he kneels for the American flag. And I think a lot of people use that as an excuse to hate Colin Kaepernick because he's black and he's talented. And that's just the facts, because half the people that have commented about Colin Kaepernick kneeling during the national anthem don't stand up themselves. We're talking about America went on an outrage, and when you sit down and think about it, these are Americans that are sitting in their house watching football, sitting in their chair. When the national anthem is played out, they don't stand. These people aren't standing around in their house. They're not leaving their grills and putting down. You might get a hand over the heart best out of them. But these are people who judge others based upon their own stigmatic education and miseducation that has been placed there by an agenda-filled government. And that is just the facts. Stats show that we are all starting to come to understand that it's easier for us to say that racism is systemic and that it has been in our country from the inception. We get into, what is critical race theory? Like, what is critical race theory? Why do we have these arguments over critical race theory? Why are we having critical race theory taught in our schools? This is history. This is history. Why is it named something other than history? Why is history not being taught as critical race theory, if that's what they want to call it? Still, it's the separatism. And it's these Band-Aids that they come out with to pacify. And this is all they have done with us, is try to pacify the people. This is what the 13th Amendment was all about. Pacification. These people didn't want to free slaves. They didn't want to end slavery. These black people at that time was building America. They couldn't stop that, but they had to stop the fighting. There were Americans killing themselves over this slavery bit. They couldn't have that, first and foremost, because they had to have these people to work. Taxes are to be paid. So it was coming to a resolution, a pacification. How can we keep our interests, but yet pacify the people? This is what the 13th Amendment was. That's all it was. It wasn't about abolishing slavery. Because if it was, they would have never put the however in there. And it's the however that's unknown. Why is it unknown? Because when you Google the 13th Amendment, all you're going to get is the first part of it. It is known as the amendment that abolished slavery. And it gives you that, and then it gives you the little ... and then it stops. Never gives you the second part. The however. And as in law, there is always a however. And in this particular law, however, all rules of slavery apply to those who have been convicted of a crime. All rules of slavery are to apply to those who have been convicted of a crime. All rules of slavery. So when we sit here and we say that prisons is slavery, people laugh at us. People laugh at us like, oh, you just complaining. No, it's slavery. We have been treated less than man, 3/4 of a man, no matter what your crime is. And this has turned into an institution that has incarcerated almost 3 million of our American citizens, who are mostly nonviolent, mostly addicted to drugs, crimes of survival. This is a monetary institution, and it is costing the taxpayers heavily each year on their taxes. When we have to work 60 to 80 hours a week, these are the reasons why. because there's so much money that's going unchecked. Because there is written off as criminals. This is criminals. And they show us all this crime on the 6 o'clock news to keep us in fear of these criminals, to justify their police and to justify their prisons. So it's never a question. It's never even brought up when they're cutting taxes or they're trying to take money from somewhere or somehow to alleviate inflation. They never look at prisons or incarceration. It's never even a thought. It's never even brought up. There's reasons for this. And this is what FreeMe Podcast is about. And more importantly, this is what my organization, Coming Home Coalition, is about, which is now a nonprofit. So please support. I need it. The support goes in line with trying to unite and bring all of us together, all our communities, through community help, support, in any kind of way when it comes to criminal justice. If there's a family that, because we can't trust attorneys anymore. We know that attorneys just want our money, and our son's life is more important than that. And there are families out there who feel like just because a prosecutor slapped a charge of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon on your child, and now they're looking at 15 years, and you have this gunslinger attorney come in who says, you know what, I can get your son 6 months probation. What parent wouldn't jump on that because they don't want their son to go to jail, and they know that their child got into an argument, a fight. Maybe it was nowhere near as serious as aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, but that was the charge. And we settle for that probation, not knowing what that felony conviction has now done to your child for the rest of his life. So it's understanding these things and making sure that the family is well aware of what is going on before they enter into these contracts with these government officials, because the government has shown us time and time again they do not care. The stats are there, prisons are full, communities are destroyed, we're working 60 to 80 hours, it takes 2 people to run a household, we have no time for our family, the children are being disrespectful to the parents because we're not there. If we cannot provide to our children monetarily or in any other kind of way, this is where the disrespect comes from, because what good is a parent? You're never here. The nurturing's not here. You're not allowed to touch me. You're not allowed to break me, so I don't have to fear you, right? So there goes the respect right there. And then I don't have to listen to you because Google says everything that you say differently. I'm going to listen to Google. So we're losing our children in that aspect. And what happens to our children when they don't follow their elders, when they think that they know everything and they're out here at 17, 18 years old thinking that they have all the answers to life and life comes down on them? What happens? This, again, is what my organization is now here for. It is a nonprofit. I do need community support because I will not accept federal funding or grants for this organization. It is for the people, by the people. And that is what will allow me to bring the content that I bring unfiltered until they shut me down. And if I can get enough community support behind me, they can't shut me down. So this is what is allowing me to bring these discussions. That is what allows me to get in the room with these representatives and tell them exactly what the solutions are to change. We don't need good time. We don't need parole. We need to stop sending people to prison. We need to stop making money off these people. Empty these prisons out. We can use so many of those buildings for homeless shelters. They have hospitals in them, showers, beds, right? We could stick so many homeless in there and run them through programs. There's so much that we can do with these billion-dollar buildings that they built, besides just warehouse men for monetary gain. There's so much more to it than what we're doing. And that is what I'm bringing up into the room. They don't want to discuss those issues. Representatives don't want to discuss term limits. They don't want to discuss, retributions against prosecutorial misconduct. These are off the table. No. We want to talk about good time and parole, where they've gone through the system. We want the convictions. Yeah, we can't get rid of the convictions, but we'll shorten the time up a little bit and revolve them a little bit quicker. That's what I'm trying to get these organizations to understand. Like, why are we in a rush to get people out of prison into a society that's not even accepting them? What are they going to do? It's just creating more of an issue. So it's just everybody's everywhere making emotional decisions, and nobody's really coming together and thinking these things through. And we're doing that now, you know. Again, through my organization, through a multitude of great organizations and people who see what the issue is, we agree on the solutions, and we're coming together to try to gain support in that. So please again visit www.cominghomecoalition.com and support where you can. Racism. I've experienced it. I've seen it. I've lived through it. I was brought up in it. I had to abolish it myself and go through it. And I'm looked upon as a certain type of individuals by white people. You know, I've been called a race traitor and all of these things throughout my life because of just who I was forming into and who my experiences were as a human being and how I was interacting with these experiences and processing these experiences based upon what I saw. And that's it. And I was judged for that and called names and such because there are individuals out there who are just hateful. They're just hateful because they hate who they are. And in hating themselves, they have to lower other people below them so that their hate for themselves is a little more justifiable. You know, they can't have good people around them because that would make me the bad person. So if I expose everybody else's weaknesses and badness, then mine won't be so outlandish, you know, won't stick out so much. But a lot of these issues that we see on TV makes us emotional, and then we take it into our own communities. What happened up there in Buffalo was a tragedy, yes, of course, but it didn't happen in Tampa. It didn't happen in anywhere else. And could it? Sure. A meteoroid can wipe out Earth tomorrow. I can't worry about that stuff. I can be aware of it. I can know that it exists, but I can't let it affect me emotionally to where now I'm taking it into my community. And now I'm creating what I fear in other communities. Right? We as people have to understand that this is an agenda to keep us divided, keep us hating on each other, so that our eyes are not on who the real enemy is. So with that, I'm going to leave that. And we're going to get into Mr. Frank Depalma. And Frank had a very tough time in prison. And he was dealing with, Aryan groups in there, as I was. And the pressure to perform, for these groups. And what happens in prison when you don't. And how prison, the administration of prison, breeds hate, breeds racism, breeds segregation. They structure it that way. The prison is structured to segregate, to hate each other, and to create the animosity that it does. So we get into these issues. So sit back, please enjoy, and just always keep in mind that this is an individual who has been in prison for 42 years. And of those 42 years, 22 of those were spent in solitary confinement. For those that really don't understand solitary confinement, you're talking about a 6x8 room, right? 6 foot wide, 8 foot deep. And in that 6 foot by 8 foot, you have a bed on one side of the wall that comes out 2 feet, right? 24 inches, and is 6 feet long. And then you have a toilet, and then you have a desk. This is all that you have in the room. You have no mirror. You have a small little window, those small little bar windows that like this. And if you're lucky, first off, it's not a window. It's just, it's usually stained glass, or you can't see through it. There's nothing that you cannot see outside. We would spend hours trying to find a little crevice in this window just to see grass, see something outside besides just this light coming through a blocked window. And some people would block their windows. They wouldn't want no light to come in. But you're in this room and you go nowhere. You're in this room for however long until you move. Some prisons, depending on the severity of your solitary confinement, they rotate rooms so to kind of keep you psychologically sound. But they don't have to. It just all depends on the administration. It just all depends on the administration. But they don't have to. And Frank spent 22 years in one 6x8 cell. Never left that cell. You'll hear all of this, in the upcoming tale. So just keep this in mind when you're speaking. When you hear this man speak, and he's only been out since 2018, so 4 short years, and this man has been left. He was dumped. He was just kicked out and told good luck, and he's been trying to survive since then. It's really an amazing story. So, without further ado, Frank Depalma. We need to get you a mic and stuff, because I'm gonna be doing a lot of interviews with you. I want to bring you in on discussions that I have with other people and stuff like that too.
I don't think I'm the person for that.
No,
I got too many. Huh?
You don't think so?
My brain's dealing with too many deficits to delve into that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be a disaster.
I don't think you would, man. I think you would be perfect. The reason why I would bring you in as an experienced ear, right? Just to sit back and process what people are saying, because the experience that you have is so unique. You're going to process things in a way that very few people will. And that in itself is when you really learn how to hone that, where you can just sit back and take what people say and process it. It's man, things are really gonna come together for you, man, because like I say, you are a very unique individual, Frank.
What makes me unique? I don't just another guy that spent years in prison,
Your experience alone, because not many people go through that experience. It's the experience in who molds us. It's the experience in who shapes us, and experiences is what gives us thought process. So your thought process is based solely on your experiences, which is very unique. Many people don't experience what you went through, and not only that, but survive it. And not only that, but come out and still have enough courage and strength left in them to want to still improve their life and right their wrongs and things of those natures.
Yeah.
That is what makes you so unique.
Yeah, I have seen a lot of guys, well, almost all of them really, that came out since I've been out, and they're all back in.
You're not going back.
No, I'm not.
No, you're not going back, Frank, because you understand, and it's just like me. I would go sleep under a bridge before I went back under there. I would face that challenge before I went back into prison. So
I did that. I faced that challenge, that homelessness. I'm not. Hey, the homeless people are the tough ones. They're tough. They are tough. I ain't got nothing on them. I got nothing on that.
Well, let's get into what we're going to talk about today, which is racism in America. With the latest of everything going on with these mass shootings, man, and God bless all these families and what they're going through, and the atrocities that they're facing every day, having to wake up and still deal with this.
The sad part is I've seen such a drastic change, and in our society as far as parenting goes. Parents have become afraid to discipline their children.
Mm-hmm.
They're afraid to have sleepovers because somebody says something, you know. It's just parents don't instill things that we had instilled in us by our parents. And it seems like kids are being raised nowadays without any kind of foundation within themselves about learning to understand what respect is and what it means. You know, to give respect to everyone because of their intrinsic value as human beings. I mean, I try to be humble when I'm around people because I spent my whole life around barkers and biters and haters.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't like it. So what I do in my life is I've taken all the things, all the bad things, what have you, and I've looked at them. It's like I looked at myself. I looked at myself and then I stepped inside myself and I had to face the truths that I didn't realize and that I ignored or that I denied. But that made me a better man because I value honesty. I value trust. You know, I value compassion, forgiveness, understanding. I value these things and I value that I have only very few relationships, but they're real. They're real, you know.
Well, I mean, I agree with you 100% on the aspect of the children. And this is a lot of what my podcast revolves around is the fact that one, they overwork us, right? They overwork us. And again, that is an agenda to divide the household, right? Because as long as the parents are working, they don't have contact with the children. And where are the children? The children are being raised in government institutions, government facilities, you know, especially in the poor class, because we can't hire personal tutors and things of that nature, you know.
No,
so it's we're sticking them in Section 8, you know, kid facilities and WIC, you know, however that stuff goes, you know. And
yeah,
the children are learning not to listen to the parent, right? Because
yes,
like you said, the parent, even though that we're human in nature, right, and we have emotions and things of that nature, we're still animals, and animals have to be broken. If you want your
yes,
dog to respect you and you want your dog to mind you and listen to you in your house where it's not pissing and shitting all over the house and chewing up all your stuff, you have to break that dog. That dog has to
right.
know that you are the master. You are the leader of this house and it abides by your commands. But like you said, we're unable to do that with our children, right? So the children never get broken. They never get taught to respect the elder. They're being taught
Yes,
to disrespect the elder. There's nothing there for the elder to do other than to feed them, clothe them, and give them money when they want it. And if that
and so what
elder
do you?
can, if that elder cannot provide that for that child then becomes rebellious because it sees no other value in that elder.
And they're more susceptible to outside influence,
Of course.
you know, and hence their mass shootings because they start getting online and they see all this white supremacist, racist thing, you know, and they're, whether they realize it or not, they're looking for something. Everybody's looking for something in their life.
Yeah.
And then they latch on to this. And then they get all, just like the kids that go into prison and these guys recruit them to join the gang. Hey, brother, you know, this, that, and the other thing. And they, yeah, but really, they're just being used.
So let's talk about that. Because I think that's very, very important. Again, when we're talking about, you know, especially when we have these congressional members getting up on stage talking about white supremacy and all of that. And I do want to note out that I did listen to the meeting that they had the other day when they were up there talking about, you know, the AR-15 and what they were going to do with it and guns and such. And they were up there making notes, and their speech was of white supremacy and the problem with white supremacy in our country. But they were speaking as if that white supremacy is not amongst them, it's amongst us. And I want the people to understand, right? Hear the speech of these people. They are always putting it on us. It's always our fault. Everything is
Yes.
us. We are doing this. They never take accountability for none of their actions, and they will never speak of white supremacy amongst them. It's always amongst us.
Look, those are people, them people sitting up on Capitol Hill, they never even have to go grocery shopping. All their medical is taken care of for the rest of their life. They don't understand. They've forgotten, or they never understood about the blue collar class. People living from paycheck to paycheck. And I see it as just what I see in Washington now is just a bunch of both sides of the aisle fighting each other, just spiting each other and trying to sabotage one another. And who suffers? Everybody out here. Gas is what, $6 a gallon now. Food prices have gone through the roof, and they want to blame it on COVID. No, I blame it on them. I blame it on them.
Of course,
They don't take care of their
everything
own.
spawns from our leaders. But so
Oh, yes,
you were going into prison for the first time at 18 years old as a young kid who had spunk, who had fight in them. And what was expected of you as a young white kid coming into prison? Let's ask that. What was expected of you?
Well, I operated on what I considered to be sound advice from guys in the jail that had been in prison. And they simply told me, you learn the rules, you mind your own business, you don't tell, and you represent yourself. You always got to stand up for yourself. And I learned to do that in life, on the streets, growing up in Brooklyn. So aside from the fear, fear has been like a friend to me my whole life.
Mhm.
It's been I've known it my whole life, but it's also helped me, keep me alert, and keep me aware. And so when I got there, I was scared to death, but I still knew I had to learn the rules and check things out and get the feel of the place so I could better deal with it. And that's what I did. That's what I did.
Mhm. Now, for those that have not listened to the prior conversations, this is Frank Depalma. He spent 42 years and some odd days in prison, and 20, 21, 22 years was spent in
22
solitary,
years and 36 days. Yeah.
spent in solitary confinement. He's home, and his well, you can check the prior episodes. Plus, he has a book coming out that will go in full detail. But today's episode, we're specifically talking about racism. Now, Frank was born and raised in Brooklyn, right? You grew up in Brooklyn,
Yes.
inner city of Brooklyn, right?
Yeah.
How much interaction did you have with Black people in your youth?
Well, there's a lot of blacks and Puerto Ricans. Brooklyn's a melting pot. You have Jews, you have all different. And our neighborhoods were structured in such a way where people knew that if you go into this neighborhood and you go in there by yourself unescorted, you're going to have a problem. You have to be invited into that neighborhood. So in the boroughs, Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens, Staten, uh, it was all operated on that same foundation. That like in the Bronx, they had the Enclave, uh, Bay Ridge. They had everybody had their place, and we stayed there. You know, some tenement buildings in Brooklyn, they got walls around them. Is that to keep people out or to keep us in?
Right.
uh, it's just you. I believe I found in life that people gravitate, people with the same mindsets and the same aura or whatever. They seem to gravitate towards each other.
Mhm. Like minds.
Like like ducks don't fly with hawks. You know, uh, gazelles don't hang out with lions.
Right.
And that's the hierarchy, you know. And the same thing applies in prison. But in prison, it's the numbers that overwhelm you.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my case. You know, I had numbers,
Mm-hmm.
but I had adopted a different mentality as far as like, if there's 100 of them and one of me. I looked at it this way: there's only one of me. I know where I am at any given time. There's 100 of them. I got 100 shots to one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I tried to adopt that positive mentality and operate on that. And in prison, you don't really have to think, but you follow the rules. You know, everything is structured for us, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And all we have to do is watch out for the pitfalls, because the slightest mistake and you got a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, so going back to the boroughs, that's how you was already kind of adapted to a segregated way of life growing up in these boroughs, as you say, right?
yeah,
For the most part, because like you say, there were some parts that a certain group couldn't even go into, you know.
right.
So then going into prison now, and now you had this individual give you the advice as to walk like a man, keep to yourself. You know, he's giving you the rules of the convict, you know, which all young kids I think get from some elder when they go in. This was a white guy, right?
Yeah,
And how did you take that?
I took it. You know, he had done, I think, I don't know, he did over 10 years, and then he also did some Fed time.
Mm.
And so, you know, I could just sense that this guy knew what he was saying, you know, and it just felt right, you know. He
And
didn't
this was in
bark.
the
He didn't.
70s.
Yes, yes, in
Mm.
county jail, you know, before I, you know, got sentenced, or
You
before I
got
was taken
shipped.
to prison.
Oh, this
Yeah,
was in the county. So this was advice you got into the county before you got shipped. Now
yeah.
you hit the yard, and what happens? Who were you approached by? Are you
Well,
approached? Like, what is your
well,
expectation on that yard?
the first week I was in the screening cells that had to get processed in through the administration. Uh, so I stayed on the tier and I ate on the tier with the you know, other fish that was there. And then I got classified for general population. I started coming out, you know, and like I said, I just kept to myself, watched everything, and you know, there was guys that come up and what are you in for, you know. I don't know why they asked me, because convicts did all the processing. They knew who you were before you ever got there.
Yep.
You know, they knew exactly what your charge was and how much time you were doing. But I told the truth. You know,
And let me explain quickly to the listener what Frank is talking about. So how do we know these things? You may be asking, like, how does an inmate know what an inmate that hasn't even gotten to prison, how does he know that he's coming there and he's got charges? First and foremost, prison is a world in itself, and it's a small society, and we're constantly trying to seek information, because first and foremost, if my cellie went to the shoe, if he went to the hole or got killed or whatever reason, I know that they're going to be putting somebody in my cell. I want to know who's coming in my cell. So I want to know when a bus is, well, we already know when the buses arrive, right? We know when buses come in, because buses come in routinely, you know, once a week or twice a month, however that institution runs, right? So we know when buses come, and we want to know who's getting off the bus. We'll go ask our case manager, a bus coming today? Yeah, a bus will be in today. How many white guys are getting off the bus? We got 4 white guys getting off the bus. How many are coming to this unit? Well, there's 1 coming to this unit. And I was thinking about putting him in your cell. Okay. What kind of charge does he have? So this is the type of interaction that we have with officers to protect ourselves and our environment, what we got going on. But that's how we know about this inmate before he even steps foot on the yard.
well, you see, nowadays, it's, you know, the the staff does all the processing, but what they do now is a paper check.
Mm-hmm.
When you come in, you got to show your paperwork, or you're going to get smashed out.
Mm-hmm.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And because like my last year, they sent me to Southern Desert. And when I got on the tier, 3 white dudes approached me, stood outside the cell, said, "Hey man, got to check out your paperwork." And I showed them my ID card, and I said, "You got a back number older than mine." "Yeah, I'll do that." "Until you get a back number as old as mine, take a walk."
Right.
Well, hey man, and I said, "Well, you go do what you got to do." And so what happened was there were some people there that knew of me or whatever, and said, "Hey, maybe I did wrong." So that's what they do nowadays.
Yeah. And that was the thing about mine was my case was public. It was published. So as soon as I hit the compound, right, because sometimes we would have to wait weeks for our property to come,
Yeah.
But as soon as I hit the compound, I could take them right to the law library, pull my case up on the computer and show that I went to trial, So that was one of the perks about my case and going to trial. But so now you're in here, Frank. How are you approached by the white guys? What is your expectation on this yard? Are you given rules of engagement on the yard? Are you told how to and what not to do and things of that nature?
Well, like there was a couple of guys that have been down for a long time, and I said, I asked him, I said, "Well, what's expected of me?" Dude said, "You're able-bodied, and tensions kick off, and we side up, black against the whites." Well, let me clarify. As far as racial tensions and all that, the whites and the Mexicans had an alliance that, on that kind of stuff, they never got involved in each other's politics. But let's say a riot kicked off, I was fully expected to be there. And if I wouldn't have been there, there's going to be some serious problems. I had even told the guy that approached me about prospecting that, look, I know the rules. I'll be where I'm supposed to be when the time comes. I'll put that much of myself at risk because I have to, But other than that, I just want to do my time and go home.
Prospecting, what does that mean?
Well, like had I said yes, I would have been.
No, when you said that he was prospecting, what does that mean? And who is he? Was he part of a gang member?
Yes, he was. Matter of fact, he was the head. He founded the gang, Aryan Warriors.
The Aryan Warriors.
Yeah, and and I guess I was supposed to be bowled over with gratitude that he wanted to personally prospect me,
which means take you up under his wing and train you in the ways of Aryan warriorship.
As he said to me, "I like what I see. I get good reports from you. I think you'd be an asset to my organization. I would like to personally take you under my wing and raise you in the ways of a real man and a real warrior." And I was a little bit offended by that, but I said, well, my father started that, teaching me to be a man, and I hope life will teach me to be a good man. I said, as far as a warrior goes, I don't know about all that. I said, but I'm going to have to say no because I just want to do my time and go home. He was of the he was a narcissist, a true narcissist, and he took serious offense that I said no to him.
Yeah,
and he put the word out.
What are some of the things? What are some of the things that you would see this Aryan warrior group do? Like, what was their ideology? What was their thought pattern? What was it that they were trying to accomplish?
Criminal activity. What else? Domination, ruling, and he did. He used violence, and he had some pretty violent people on his crew. they all had to prove themselves to be men unto themselves, not counting on each other to, protect me. And in fact, their manifesto said, every mender shall prove himself to be a man unto himself. Yeah, they had their manifesto, and they had to live by those rules. I'm not really privy to the full manifesto. I just that part.
Right. So
Uh,
how does it look inside of prison in that fashion? I mean, you have these white supremacist groups, these Aryan, warriors and things of that nature. Like, how does the prison function as the inmates with all of these different groups of people?
Well, back then, the prisoners, that was their world. There was a lot of violence between guards and some of the A-dubs. And there was even bullets flying on the streets. One of the A-dubs that got out came up missing. And that was a thing going on between the A-dubs and the guards. Well, what happened is that one of the wardens came home from work and a bullet went by his head into his house. Well, a short time later, there was a late night meeting, I was told. And in that meeting, it was established that, look, I don't care what you do to each other. I don't care what you do. This is your world. But my officers go home safe and sound to their families every night. No more. No more of this bullshit. And it was agreed. Shortly after that, the upstairs, the weekend gambling games, they started up again. Things were really flowing. And there was a lot of money on the yard, a lot of drugs. People were, even the captain of the yard. This is how blatant it was. Captain of the yard told one of the gang leaders, hey, creative minds need to get creative because we're getting heat with all the stabbings going on. So next thing you know, people are hanging themselves and ODing.
So the guards were well aware of the Aryan warriors' criminal activities within the prison, and probably, had interchanges with that. But as far as the prison itself, is the prison segregated? Like, how are prisons? Do they segregate the inmates?
Well, no. Well, you see, it used to just be the cell house before they built the hill, but and that opened up in '84. There was just a cell house, and you'd have a small yard. It's not a very big yard, with 600 people on the yard at one time. And that's where people they handled business, they discussed things, and drove iron, played basketball. Everybody did what they did, and you just flocked to your people, or you stayed by yourself.
Your people meaning
that simple.
Your people meaning
your race.
Your race. Yeah.
Like in the chow hall, you sit with your race. Everybody has their tables.
What would happen to you if you went and sat with the black people over on the black side?
The people are gonna say, "What are you doing? Don't do that no more." The whites, somebody's gonna approach you.
Would the blacks say, hey, what would the blacks say to you?
Well, the blacks, a lot of times, you would see, like when I first went into the chow hall, I'm just standing there looking around. And then some guy waves me over, some white guy, and he waves me over, and there's a spot at the table. He says, you sit there. I said, all right. So I sat down, and nobody said nothing to me. They didn't do any talking, They ate, and then we left, right? And on the way out, the guy said, that's your table, that's your seat from now on. Don't let nobody take it. My first incident was standing in a chow hall. Some guy cut in front of me. I didn't say nothing, And the dude, he happened to be an A-dub. He patted me on, he poked me on the shoulder. He goes, "Hey, what the fuck are you gonna do? That guy just cut in front of you."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "What the fuck am I supposed to do?" He said, "You better do something, or you're gonna be dealing with some people. Just letting you know that it's your choice."
Yeah, because half the chow hall saw that dude cut in front of you.
Yeah. So I told him, "Hey," I told the guy in front of him, "Excuse me, that's my," he was a white dude,
Mm-hmm.
but he wasn't tipped up or anything. And he said, "Well, man, I'm hungry, man." I told him, "Man," and I grabbed him and I pushed him behind me, And then another guy said, "No, you get behind me, motherfucker."
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up in the back of the line.
Of course.
So I averted, and what would have happened if someone explained to me, if someone does that to you, that's they're testing you, or they're just not thinking when they should be, and it's just plain disrespectful.
Yeah, because in my mind at that time, I'm gonna sit here and think, why? Well, why the hell did you cut in front of me? Why didn't you cut in front of him up there or him behind me? Why you cut in front of me?
Exactly, because there are still people in front of me.
Right.
Yeah. So did you single me out?
That's how I'm gonna think.
Yes, exactly. And but at first, I mean, when somebody cut, it didn't bother me. I'm still going to get my food, but that's in society. That ain't in there. You cannot allow anybody to put a foot on your neck. You just can't.
So in that,
I learned that.
In that context, that in the chow hall, like the chow hall is completely separated. You will not see a black person eating with a white person. You will not see a white person eating with a black person. But what about Mexicans? The Spanish?
No.
They all eat together as well.
Yes. Every race ate by themselves.
And then as far as in the dorm itself, your living quarters, how is that structured? Is it structured the same way?
There wasn't any dorms when I was when I came in.
Mm-hmm.
It was all tiny little barred cells, with the sliding bar doors. The cell house is an old place,
So what would happen if you were in your cell and the institution put a black individual in the cell with you?
Oh, they wouldn't do that.
Who wouldn't do that?
They wouldn't do that. The administration.
Why wouldn't the administration do that? Why wouldn't they put one human being in with another?
Because if they put a black in a white guy's cell, somebody's going to get stabbed.
Why?
I promise you that. Why? Because you are expected, you are mandated to say, no, you can't live in here. If he comes into your cell that you're already there, you got to tell him, "Hey, look, keep your shit packed. You ain't coming in here."
But why though?
Because he's black. And those are the rules. Look.
But what is the stigma behind that, though, is what I'm trying to get the listener to understand. Why is it so looked down upon to have a black individual as your cellmate?
Because that's how people are raised, and those are the rules in prison. As you know, the intensity between society and prison is apples and oranges, man.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great intensity inside the prison walls, and the gangs make up the rules, and those rules are based on ancient traditions and prejudices that our society lives by. Remember, everybody that's in prison was in society at one time. And
well, they're in prison because they could not function in society. Exactly. So these are supposed to be the quote unquote, I don't like call it, this isn't mine, but it's how society looks at them. But this is supposed to be the rejects of society. They could not be in society. This is why they're in prison, because they have these types of ideologies. So that's to be expected. But I guess what I'm trying to show is how the administration facilitates this type of behavior, right?
Well, that's half of them are racist. You see very few blacks, especially back then. There was absolutely no blacks that I can recall in the 70s. Black guards working there? No, I didn't. I never saw that.
Have you?
When somebody
go ahead.
When a black when a black officer would start, he didn't last. Now, that was the administration, not us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they had their own thing. They didn't want blacks there. Now you have multitude of different races and working in prison.
Did
But
you
back
see?
then,
Did you see blacks were treated differently than whites inside a prison?
to be honest with you, I don't. The race card, it's a double-edged sword. I grew up around different races, and I have never really had a problem with any other with a person's color. However, in my situation, even though at first, like for example, on that first killing that I had, it's the newspaper headlines came out: NSP death seen as contract killing. That didn't fly. They came out with another headline: NSP death seen as racially motivated.
Mm.
It was the furthest thing from the truth. But they put it on the news. They put it in the newspapers.
The headline, yeah, it sells.
Yeah, and so that's the premise they went with. And they tried to prove me to be a racist, but they couldn't. However, I got to be honest. Though I never said the N word, generally, I got to be where I hated them, and it was end this, end that, because of the situation I was in with them. I automatically turned to that racial.
Well, this is. Thank you for saying that, because this is what I want you to elaborate on, Frank, is how that was brought into your existence. This is why I was trying to bring up your childhood and things of that nature, because as you and I had talked about previously, you have symbols of hate tattooed on you, and people can see that, right? And it's going to, of course, give you an automatic stigmatic. It's going to put you in that stigmatic box, right?
And you're right, because I have met people, like I was sitting and I was talking with some Oriental people, and they asked about my tattoos, and I told them prison, and then they pointed to the little swastikas, and I said, I know. I said, but I've never belonged to a gang. I said, I put these on, these ugly tattoos. I put them on to try to look tough. I would see tattoos on people, try to remember it and duplicate it. I got some sorry tattoos, right? But I was just scared and I wanted to look tough. That's
No, that's beautiful in what you say, partner, because that is what I'm trying to get the people to understand, the culture of prison and how it transforms individuals before they're released into the community, right? And then we see these individuals that are coming out without understanding the transformation that they went through, and then we start treating these people as what we see them as, which ultimately they're like, well, I might as well just be this, right? So these are the stigmatic views that I am trying to erase through these conversations. In how do you, right, like you and I understand, but when somebody's sitting here watching this interview and you're sitting here saying I'm not racist, but yet you have racist symbols of hate tattooed onto your skin, I want the listener to truly understand how that transformation is allowed to happen and how the administration of prisons promote that.
By the way they operate the prison, it's promoting racism.
Thank you.
I mean, their whole setup is backwards. They teach class warfare, not racial and cultural awareness. Because if I understand this person that is supposed to be my enemy better, then I'm probably not going to hate him.
That's right.
But they don't teach that in prison. They don't. No, that's the furthest thing from their mind.
That's exactly what I wanted to talk about, was get into how the administration of these prisons is facilitating this racial activity inside of these institutions and teaching individuals how to be segregated, how to hate each other, and how to be racist. So
there's there's been times when the guards would, in their own little ways, when the focus became too much on them, they would divert attention by creating situations, racial situations. They would put, let's say, like, for example, John Layton. It was 1976 is when the big riot kicked off in the culinary, and people died. Some blacks died, and a bunch got stabbed. The guards had locked John Layton into the weight room with all the blacks, and they attacked him. And he got out of it alive, but he was just a hog. That boy was a hog. And I don't know if the listeners know what a hog is.
no, explain what a hog is.
Like most people, like when you drive an iron, and you get real healthy, you get swelled up and you get strong, and you're just somebody that people have come to respect because you're just those guys, when they get hog status, that's a respect thing on the weight pile, and a testament to a committed individual. I got to a point where John Layton, who was a hog, gave me hog status. That gives me the authorization to give somebody else that status. And I just made a good friend of mine a hog status, and it's a girl.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
but she's tough, And so I told her, you know what, man, I have the authority to give you hog status. And she said, "What's that?" And I ran it down to her. She goes, "Well, give it to me." But the sad part is, and so from that, it was a friend of John's said, "Oh yeah, all right, we're going to show you." And they put the riot together. They put the plan together and executed it in the culinary. But you see, like I said, a lot of the guards are racist, and you can't be something and put up a facade and it not come out sooner or later. So in your dealings with people, if I'm a racist and I'm dealing with blacks, they're gonna sense something, They're gonna sense something. And between us, between the convicts, there's really not, it's the culture that manifests this natural. We live in a world of ancient tradition and prejudice. And let's face it, racism is systemic in our society. And it's always going to be that way. Unfortunately, I don't see that changing. It's just so deeply rooted. And then you hear people talking about, oh, well, they're black. Well, they're lazy anyway. They're good for nothing anyway. They hype all that, the media, all that crime in the black neighborhoods, is prison. They propagate this fear. And they do that for votes. The media propagates fear. They go from, okay, predators, now they got super predators. Define that for me. What's a super predator?
That's what Joe Biden called it.
Yeah,
that's what Joe Biden called us back in the 80s when he was passing his crime bill, super predators.
Yeah, and they just fear mongering. That's all it is. And it gets votes because everybody's afraid. You got to get tougher on crime. You got to, when half the problem in prison is the prison administrators themselves. They don't want anybody, like with the solitary thing. They don't want any outsiders coming in and telling them how to run their prison.
Right.
They're very big on that. It's a good old boy system.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to break down.
Yeah, and and it's just nowadays, you could hear them like in Southern Desert. I could hear the guards in their little area where they hang out, and you catch them telling black jokes,
Mhm.
you know, talking about black inmates using the N-word,
Would you ever hear
you
guards
know.
joking with like that with white supremacist groups, inmates?
Oh, yes, 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 yeah.
Mhm.
A lot of them guards, they're afraid too when they come to work. They know what can happen. Just like I was involved in a hostage situation where 3 guards were taken hostage, and we took over max housing, and you know, uh, there were 3 white guards, but they were, except with the exception of one, the other 2 were pretty decent. The other one, he sort of had to be protected. They kept him up in the front office, but during that situation, it was established by the heads of the gangs, mostly the Aryan Warriors, that hey, this is between us and them. Everything between us right now is on the back burner.
Mhm.
And you see how easy it can be to quell those things.
Well, that's what
It,
I want to
it,
ask is if, in your opinion, in your 40 some odd years of experience, would you say that if it wasn't for this racial stigmatic view that the administration was upholding inside of these prisons, do you think that racial tension would even be there? And what I mean by that is during my time, like I would see these people who were portraying to be racist, like you say, for protection, because that's just was the law of the land. But however, you could tell that they didn't hate black people. You know what I mean? Like they
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
hate these
yeah,
people. Like, they would coincide with each other and talk with each other and things like that. It wasn't white supremacy. It was just survival inside a prison.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So how do we stop that? Like where and how can we attack that and bring public notice to the fact that when these congressional people are sitting up on stage in Washington and they're talking about white supremacists in our communities and these white supremacist acts and all of this, they're focusing on white supremacy as if there aren't other militia
Yeah, but
groups out there,
see,
whatever. But
I think in the case of like the Capitol, okay, uh, I don't think it was a racial thing. I don't think it was about white supremacy. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit because you have 2 white guys going against each other in office.
no, I'm not talking about the
Uh,
January 6th thing. I'm talking about these congressional leaders who sit up there and talk about white supremacy as if it's only in us. And what I'm trying to
but they're
get the,
part
the
of it too.
right,
They're part of it too. Come
and
on.
that's what I'm trying to get the people to understand, that it is them that is breeding this hatred and allowing it to come into our communities, right? They're
Well, in this
allowing these
country,
breeding grounds inside of prisons and then releasing these people. What would happen, say if your guy got out, the head of the AW, he didn't die in prison, but he got out. Well, he did get out, right?
yeah, no, he died in prison, just like I said he would.
I thought he got out and caught another charge and went back
No,
and
no, he
so
was
give me
fighting a bunch of,
so
huh?
give me an example of a kid that goes in who's not racist but falls under this racist regime and then
All
comes
right,
back out into society.
all right, all right. Well, he gets inducted. Okay, he's hanging out, and they tell him, "Hey, look, he pretty much he's scared too." This kid goes in, he's scared too, and if an opportunity comes along to where most guys, most people, especially youngsters going into prison, they're looking for something to belong to, something, to be proud of. I mean, they want something good. They want
Mhm.
them. They want something. Uh, and so the allure that comes to them as far as the prison gang, it offers protection. It offers
Power.
perks. Yeah, and that power exactly. And so human nature, I'm pretty good. I've learned about human behavior. There's a cause and effect for our thoughts and emotions. And these kids, in their fear, they see something and they get approached, and they go, yeah, yeah, yeah. Now they're innocent. They have no idea what they're just getting into.
Naive, yeah.
Because all these guys call you brother and this, that, and the other thing. Then they put a knife in your hand and say, go handle this.
Yeah.
And you take that 3 or 5 year sentence, and now you're doing life or death. A lot of guys that I met in there doing lots of time caught cases while they were in the joint. Because there you can't get away from it. If you have a problem with somebody, you can just let them run around the yard? No, you got to do something because he's probably plotting on you.
Let me ask this. If a white guy was to stab and kill a black person, would they be susceptible to less severe punishment as if a black guy was to kill a white person under the same circumstances?
Not in my
Experience.
Not in my experience. The race card isn't really that prevalent amongst convicts because we all share a same struggle. You know what I mean? We're all in prison. So there's a kind of kinship, a kind of bond that is automatic there. We're all suffering the same fate, in some respects. But it's within the structure of the gangs that the conversations that occur amongst themselves about other races. Yeah, that Peckerwood this and that Peckerwood that, and that honky this, and then the white guys talking about this and this and this and this and this stick and this kite. It becomes it takes form. It becomes alive. But by themselves, they're really not that way, but they become that way through their tattoos, and they're inked up, they know they belong to a gang, and they want people to see it, and they assume. A lot of people, I noticed, they create a persona for themselves, and they fall into it, and they start to believe it. They start to act that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then they become that way.
And the administration allows that to occur, right? They
Like
allow that growth to occur because they know that these hate groups are in there. They know that these, whatever race that they are, they're still hate groups, and they know that they're in there breeding.
But if they're focused on each other, if we're focused on each other, we're not focused on the administration and their tactics and their policies. There was a time, it was in the 70s, when the administration came out and said that from now on you can't have beards, you have to have your hair cut short. And the Native Americans, the tribe, they had all of them had really long hair. And they're talking about, you're crazy. You ain't cutting our hair. And they took a sergeant hostage, took him upstairs and put a noose around his neck and stood him on a chair. I said, you're going to do away with this policy. We're going to hang this boy. And they were drunk, and you know how natives are when they're drunk.
Yeah, fire water.
But the administration rescinded that order because they knew there was going to be problems. When it comes to what they do weigh the consequences as to the pros. What is this new policy going to do? Sometimes they would create new policies to create problems,
right?
Just for the purpose of, because when you have problems, when you have riots, you can get more money,
right? Because the institution goes on lockdown. They get funding now. They get emergency funding. They, all the cops get overtime. I mean, it just trickles down. So they would lock the institution down just for these purposes. Sometimes they may. The rabbit hole goes deep on that, but that's a whole different show. But
yeah, before I got out, I remember hearing this. every year, you know how prisons, they're allocated so many millions of dollars, and it's supposed to last a year. Well, within 3 months, there was already a deficit. And the governor's saying, what the hell's happening with the money? Well, he's obviously unaware, but the good old boy system is paying plenty of overtime to officers.
One of
And
the most relevant things I heard cops say, and they would say it with the greatest of ease, as if nothing was wrong with it. It was just a perk of working as a correctional officer, is that they didn't have to buy boxers anymore. They didn't have to buy white tees, socks, because when we would get new shipments in, you know, we're supposed to get these new items every so often, you know, to replace all the old ones. They would take them. They would take them home to their families and whatnot, and we would never get the new ones unless we paid for them from somebody to actually steal us some out of laundry. But other than that, these guards are in there just picking in.
Hey, you're 100% correct, because we used to get every 6 months a complete change out, 3 sets of t-shirts, 3 pair of socks, 3 pair of boxers, new tennis shoes, all. And they cut it down to 1 set every 6 months. Well, what do you mean? 1 t-shirt, 1 pair of boxers, and 1 pair of socks for 6 months? What do I wash? What do I wear when I wash them? I'll figure it out.
Figure it out. That's your problem. You shouldn't have came to prison.
On you. Yeah,
that's what they tell you.
That's on you. Get some money and buy some. Well, I didn't ask my parents for money. I didn't ask my family. I'm in prison, man. I'm a grown man. I'm not going to do that, right? But a lot of guys do. I mean, I think it's embarrassing for a grown man to get on a phone, call his mom, collect, and say, can you send me $325 so I can buy this flat screen TV, this 13-inch that only costs $80 on the streets. But in prison, it costs $325 because you have to buy from them. And they say, well, it's an electric charge, you know, power charge, you know. It's just off the charts, you know, like the commissary, that's a monopoly. You got to buy from these people, and they just jack up the prices.
All things that I'm exposing to the people of what this prison industrial system really is, and how they market us human beings for profit.
We're the stock and trade. Prisons are money makers, and we're the stock and trade.
All of our brokenness, because we're broken individuals that this society has broken us, you know, in some aspect. But well, Frank, I mean, you know, the whole aspect of it is going back into, I wanted you to get into what happens when this kid comes home now, right? He's been inducted, he comes home. What's his expectation now that he's been in prison under this white suprematic ideology?
Well, now, see, a lot of people don't realize that once you're in, you're in. You get out and you get a phone call or a letter saying, hey, we need you to handle this, we need you to go do this. You got to do it. But you better not come back to the joint, or you better beware of who's coming out, because they might have orders to come get you. So a lot of people aren't aware of that. They think it's just in prison. Okay, it's just in prison. They think it's just in prison, but they find out it ain't just in prison. And, you know, I've heard stories about guys getting out and trying to get about their lives and getting shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, and then a lot of these youngsters, they realized only too late that they were disillusioned, that these guys didn't really care about them. They wasn't a brother, and he didn't love you. Yeah, it's too late.
And I don't think they realize that until that happens, until you get home and you think in your mind, like, okay, man, I'm glad that's over with. Boy, I survived that. And then you get this call. Hey, listen, I need you to go pick up a half a key from John's house and bring it over here. You know what I mean? And give it to this chick so she can bag it up and
we'll do a gun deal.
And you're like, no, man, I'm out. I'm out of prison. I'm not committing no crime no more. Huh? What? Boy, you better go do that stuff. We can still touch you. And they may even have somebody drive by your house just to let you know.
Yeah, reach out and touch your family too. You know, there's some pretty cold-hearted people in there. You know, I mean, I told somebody, I said, you know, I'm going to admit that I've met some of the world's most depraved individuals in but I've met some of the most honorable people. I have a friend out here named Richard, and I've known him for many years, and our relationship cemented in prison, but it really cemented out here. You know, I I got I had a lot of pain, and I got involved in the heroin, and I got addicted, and I knew where I was headed, and I reached out and called him, told him, "Hey, brother, I got a problem, man. I need help."
That's
And
beautiful.
he said, why haven't I haven't seen you in several months? What's going on? You avoid me?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I didn't want you to know." And I told him, "I'm strung out."
Hmm.
And he said, "Oh, shit." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, where are you at?" And I told him he got it arranged through people that he met and the connections he made, and got me into a community triage center. I kicked, you know, and and I haven't messed with it since, you know. Uh, but I mean, I know this guy. I've known him for many years. We know each other. I know his belief system. We share a lot of the same likes and dislikes and beliefs, and it's all honorable. It, it's all real. He's never lied to me. I've never lied to him, and that's kept our relationship pure.
Hmm.
The trust that we share is is boundless, man. It's I trust him implicitly, and I know he trusts me the same way.
Has prison in any kind of way implemented a lot of these racist stigmatic views inside of you that has carried out into society with you? I
I
mean,
will catch myself.
do you see yourself seeing black people in any kind of way, maybe uh I don't know, some way that you may have seen them in prison or something? I don't know.
No, because I grew up, uh, as I said in the other segments. My father, he instilled a lot of things in me, and good things. Uh, I've never started out that way as racism, but I started to become that way in prison. I started to become a racist
Hmm.
because of my situation, and it also enabled me by categorizing people by their racial slurs. I could put everybody in their proper place, so to speak, in my
Hmm.
mind. And it also helped me to look at everybody as a potential enemy.
Hmm.
So for me to trust you, you had to be a special person. You know?
Yeah, no, there's
uh,
no question. Yeah.
yeah, and Richard was that person. Uh, but I'm out here, and now and again I'll catch myself when I'm with a group of people and they use the N word. It'll slip out of me too. But I try to be respectful of all races, of all people. You know, the only problem I have is if you see, I'm pretty forgiving. I'm really pretty forgiving. Uh, and and I and I let bygones be bygones. But my Achilles heel is to disrespect or harm someone I love. Then I lose all my manners. I lose all consequences don't matter to me anymore. I know that, and so I'm glad I only have few relationships because I would put my life out there if necessary. And so would you. But that's
Hmm.
just because that's just who we are.
One final question, partner. What are you gonna do with those tattoos?
Well, I got a guy that is working on getting me. Some guy in a tattoo shop said that when he has time, he might cover them up. He would cover them up for me. Uh, and actually, I'm actually embarrassed when people look at them.
Hmm.
You know, I used to wear my watch to cover it, but the watch didn't really cover it. I got a swastika up here on my bicep that is a backwards bicep, a swastika. It's like, I put it on backwards.
Hmm.
uh, but I've never. adhered. I've never embraced the racial, you know,
Ideology.
thing behind it.
Mm-hmm.
That's never been me. And no, I'm not out here. I don't. I look at the suffering I see out here. I see a lot of suffering, and I see a lot of people walking around with holes in their souls. There's nothing there. They're all about the drugs and burning each other, raping the women. I mean, these girls get raped out here, man. Homeless people. It's terrible. The homelessness and being homeless and poor in this state is treated as a crime.
Yeah.
You go to jail, they'll put you in jail for it.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot
rather
of pain, and there is a lot of empty souls out there, and there's a lot of people out there that are that way simply because of the color of their skin and nothing else.
Yes.
And because
Yes.
of the color of their skin, they've never really had a fair shot at life, and
Exactly.
these are the
And that is up there. That is all those people you were just talking about.
right.
Up on, they're behind it. They know the truth.
Yes,
But
and then you have these dummies that fall into that, and they start exhibiting
you don't
that
have,
hate. It's almost like the sense.
people.
It's almost like the sense, partner, of your Aryan warrior leader giving its gophers the tools to commit the crimes for them. The government, right? Our administration being the Aryan warrior leader, which is giving certain individuals, albeit your Buffalo guy and some of these other mass shooters and killers, they're allowing these people to propensate, their hatred. Because again,
Exactly.
like I say, how can these people put all of this stuff online for all of this time, yet my little videos on TikTok are censored? They censored the president of the United States, regardless whether you like him or not. They completely cut him off of social media.
Yeah.
But yet these people are allowed to keep this hate going and do it unfiltered and unchecked. And the kid from Buffalo.
That's because those in the suits that proclaim that they're not this are lying.
And they're passing the knives off to the gopher.
Exactly.
And having him do their work for them.
Exactly.
And then they sit up on their stage up in Washington talking about all of these white supremacist groups in our country, and they exclude themselves from that. Not one did I hear. Not one did I hear of any of those. Not one, Frank, did any of those say, what about the white supremacists that sit amongst us? Not one of them said that. They're all white people. There is a couple black people, but for the majority, it's majority white people up there making these decisions.
Look, this country, the Declaration of Independence and all that this country was founded by white people for white people. But people naturally are going to rise up and say, hey, man, you're treating us bad. You're not treating us like these people over here. Why not? Why do you got us living in these neighborhoods like it with nothing? And over here across the railroad tracks, you guys are living high side. What did I do? You're black, So,
well, let me ask you this: what does if an individual was to come up to you and ask you about white pride, what does that mean to you? If somebody comes up and asks you, "Are you proud to be white?"
I'd ask them to clarify that.
Mm-hmm.
I would ask them, what do you mean by that?
Because there's meaning behind that when they come up and ask you that, right?
Of course. If they're specifically asking, are you proud to be white?
Whose side are you on?
I am. Yes, I am.
Mm-hmm.
But why are you, what does that mean? Does that mean you're going to have a follow-up question? Do I hate other races? Because no, I don't. I know a guy that is a racist. He hates blacks. But the guy has the sack. He has enough cojones. He gets in fights I don't know, I haven't seen him in years, but if he won't say behind your back what he won't say to your face. And he did not call blacks. He called them the N-word. and he had plenty of problems behind it, but he didn't care. He believed in that. He truly believed that they were lesser than him.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you going to, I mean, either you side with him or you agree with him or you just stay away from him.
And those types of people are the ones that are allowed to gain power within the prison structure and
Yes.
run organizations in there and send
Yes.
people home within that organization into our communities.
Exactly.
So, Frank, thank you so much for this powerful discussion, man. Again, this is something that the people really need to understand, where this stuff breeds from, and that it's not in our communities. These aren't parents that are raising their kids that way. These are institutions that are raising our kids this way, right? So it's just,
and they do so they do so excuse me, they do so to keep all the focus off of them. As long as we're focused on each other, they don't have to worry.
Divide and conquer.
Exactly.
You take care of yourself, partner. Go ahead.
You too, brother, man. I enjoyed this. But I want to say this in closing, that our society has a tendency to treat the symptoms, which never go away because they never get to the root of the problem. And to do that means people are going to have to look at the truth and cast off those self-created illusions that we all seem to live in at times. And the illusion that our leaders are putting out there, I see through it, you see through it, and
to get the people to see through it.
And unless it's focused upon, unless the light is put on it in its truth, form, then all the laws in the world are not going to change anything. We got to change it.
We got to change it. We the people, no question. This is the premise of everything that I'm doing. And like now with my nonprofit, it's what I'm trying to do is create that fund for individuals like you, Frank, who come home and you got symbols of hate on you that you want to get removed, and you may not have the funds to do that, but now there's a fund that can allow you and help you get those tattoos removed. That fund will pay for that and help you become a part of society again. So great conversation. Many blessings to you, Frank. I'm always here. You know that. You got a brother in me.
And thank you for reaching out to me, man. It was good. I enjoyed this. I think,
and it just starts from here. It just starts from here, brother. We're wrapping and bringing all of this together. We're going to unite all convicted felons in America, and hopefully unionize these people, get us all together on one page, and start earning some respect as returning citizens.
Yeah.
So
and I respect and admire what you're doing on behalf of all of us. I want to thank you. Because it's guys like you and others that kind of give us reason to hope.
Yeah, and that's what's important.
I learned this much. You lose hope, you begin to die from the inside out.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, we discovered what hopelessness does to you. So that's essentially what it is, partner, is me just giving a bunch of people hope. I don't know what'll happen with it. It's just me. At the end of the day, it's just me doing all this and forming what I feel would be solutions, like you say, to the root of the issue, not good time. I'm not here for good time. I'm not here for parole. I'm not here to rush these guys home into nothingness. There's plenty of organizations out there that is doing the marvelous work that they're doing. I'm not here to interfere with that. I'm here to make sure that the person themselves are ready to come home and ready to reestablish themselves and know of the strength that they're going to have coming into society. The fight is not over because you come home. You're leaving one prison and going into another. It's just starting.
Yeah.
So it's bringing that awareness to the people.
I will say this much. I look at the people that wake up every day and put on their boots and lace them up and they go to work. And I have somebody that's very close to me who's been homeless for quite a while. And they have gone through, so much. and I look at my experiences as compared to their suffering, and yet they survived. And when I was homeless for like a month, I knew that I wasn't going to survive. I was going to become an all-out criminal. I was not, I could not do that. It takes a strength, a will to survive out there. And I realized I don't have that. That isn't my area of strength.
Mm-hmm.
And so my hat's off to them, because I don't like, I focus on those things. I see it and it hurts me. It really, really, really hurts, but hey, maybe, maybe hope, hope.
It's
That's a
hope,
big
and
thing.
what hurts me the most is that at the end of the day, these are human beings, man. And every human being, I believe deep down in my soul, is just in search of love. We're all in search of whatever type of love makes us tick. And we go down such dark roads and dark paths and get twisted up in so much things in search of this. And at the end of the day, we're being used against each other to bring out our evilness, our most evil sides, because like you say,
Yes.
we're put in a position where we're stripped of hope, and we become very ugly people when we have no hope.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Someone asked me, "Hey, Frank, how come you never gave up? How come you don't give up?"
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Don't laugh. I'm going to give you the simple, honest answer." He said, "What's that?" And I said, "With the hope and promise of love. I've never really known it.
Amen.
I've never had relationships. I went to prison a virgin, and I never messed around with guys. So out here, it's tough. It's tough, especially for somebody like me who has no life skills out there. I collect SSI. I have Medicaid and things like that. But when I got out, I was in a halfway house, and 6 months later, I was out on the street.
And this is what my organization deals with, is to help individuals like you, so you don't have to go through that. You've been through enough, so it's let's establish this guy into our communities, bring him back in, welcome him, help him get set back up so that he can have some semblance of some sort of life that he wanted, that was kind of robbed from him.
Like, people have asked me, how do you adjust? And I said, I don't feel like a member of society. I feel like an outcast. And that is because of the label that's on me. It follows you wherever you go.
Yeah. It's going to cut off. So we'll end it right at that right there, because that's a good ending note, but it's going to cut out. But go rest, take care of yourself, and we'll connect, man. We'll connect. And I'll get out there at some point. Number. No question.
All right, brother.
All right, partner.
Hey, let me know when you're going to start coming out with these, so I can let other people
I'm going to try to put this one out first, because I think I want this one to preclude all the other ones. They're going to